Terry, it's great to have you here. And I should point out for the people watching that I was on the ground floor when cannabis became legal in Colorado, 2011? It was years ago.
Yeah.
I worked at Fox Business and they sent me there. And I think it was called the Medicine Man. And I was doing live shots from the dispensary, but I was blown away by the industry and he had farms, but they were all inside warehouses. Let's fast forward to 2025, because one of the key issues that legal cannabis and marijuana retailers experience is banking, because the federal law still recognizes this as a controlled substance, which makes it hard to bank. So how does Safe Harbor solve for that problem?
Sure. So Safe Harbor built the first fully compliant program in the country that allows for protection of the U.S. bank system, as well as the cannabis operator to have access to that banking system. We started in 2015 is when we opened the doors to the compliant system, but our founder had been the one that sat in the congressional hearings, right? And so she wrote the book on this, and I adopted a heritage here of being, who people turn to bank cannabis back in the early days, and we were original OG. Safe Harbor went public. We started out as a division of a bank, a bank called Partners Colorado Credit Union. But in 2022, we went public on the NASDAQ, and we became something very different. We helped partners establish a program that was working across $200 million of deposits at the time. We now help other banks and our original customer partners, bank compliantly. So think of us as how companies outsource payroll to ADP. Banks outsource compliance to Safe Harbor.
Okay, but is it compliance just for cannabis dispensaries and legal marijuana retailers?
So it's compliance across the cannabis ecosystem. So operators, those that grow cannabis, all the way through distributors, those that can distribute from the wholesale to the dispensary, from the dispensary to the consumer. So the whole ecosystem, as well as ancillary. So I ran a consulting company for many years, and that dealt with the cannabis industry, and that's considered an ancillary account. And so those types of ancillary accounts also are banked with Safe Harbor.
And those ancillary accounts are not at risk to the fact that the federal government has not brought up to date its classification for cannabis and marijuana, so it's still a controlled substance.
That's true, and those ancillary accounts are important, but they have trouble maintaining normal U.S. banking system accounts with large national banks. So we provide a solution for them. So if you're providing consulting services, you're doing lighting, you're doing heavy equipment, even if you're doing the employees and you're kind of a outsourced employee, group, those companies, payroll organizations that pay the cannabis employees all become ancillary accounts, and we bank most of those types of companies because it's ultimately a place where most national banks sit back and say we're uncomfortable, and therefore, since we don't know what we're doing here, we don't choose to bank you. And so Safe Harbor and its partners, its financial institutions, make a different choice.
So walk me through in the real world and I am ignorant on how these regulations work. If I'm a retailer and I've got money, used to be business because of the regulation. Walk me through how it works now. Do I send my money to Safe Harbor, which then interacts with the bank?
Yeah, so what you're sending your money directly to the bank, right? So if you have a cannabis operation, right now what happens is you collect your deposits at the end of the day. You put them in a safe vault, or you put them in a vault. Once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, an armored car service will come pick up that cash and drop it off at a Fed location. That Fed location will then, count that cash and deposit it in the bank's account, and then deposit it in your account. While that's happening, we're doing all the work in the background. So there's Bank Secrecy Act, anti-money laundering, know your customer, and we want to make sure that, for example, a deposit is not coming from someone that's on the OFAC list of unsavory folks that the U.S. government doesn't want to do business with. whatever it may be, you want to make sure you're protecting. So while we're taking the deposits in, we're holding those deposits until we go through our checks and then allowing them to go through. For example,
let me interrupt. You just said you're holding the deposits. I thought the money was with the bank.
So the money's with the bank, but it's on hold until Safe Harbor says it's good money to accept into the bank's coffers and into the account of the individual.
So you've solved in that regard for the issue of the federal government dragging its feet. Imagine the U.S. government reclassifying marijuana and cannabis as, I think what they call it, Schedule 1 as opposed to what it should be.
Yes, the cannabis today is a Schedule 1 drug. What does that mean? That means it's illegal to distribute cannabis federally. And so what is distribution? From the point you grow it and you put it in a truck to send it to someone to sell, that's distribution. All of the distribution that happens in a dispensary is distribution. It's illegal to import and export cannabis. It's illegal to take cannabis across state lines, even if it's going today between two state legal states. So you can go from New Mexico to Texas, not Texas, but you can go from New Mexico to Colorado and have a challenge, right? Because you're not supposed to take the cannabis grown in New Mexico and bring it to Colorado. You've just committed a federal crime. Those are challenges. The banks, because they're federally chartered, were also tasked with doing certain things that were beyond what a bank is normally and customarily, tasked to do. For example, a bank is required to prevent the distribution of cannabis to minors. Banks are not in that business normally.
Right. So explain to me, you're helping map this out. The danger was if you were a business breaking federal law, your accounts could be seized.
That's right.
How does Safe Harbor prevent that?
So we comply fully with the guidance and the framework that was provided by the 2014 FinCEN letter and the Cole memorandums. And so we need to know. So we have people that know banking and compliance really well. We have technology that we've developed. We have people that know the cannabis industry very well so that, you can understand the inputs that are coming our way. And that combined allows us to understand that certain jurisdictions in New York allow it and don't allow it. Certain jurisdictions in Colorado allow for medical or recreational, and some only allow for medical. And so the banks being required to know, even down to the SKU level, what SKUs are being housed in a dispensary, that is a challenge. And our technology, our people, both bank compliance people and our cannabis team, allows us to be in a perfect position to safeguard that.
So who are your clients? The banks, the retailers, or both?
So our customers, the guys that pay us, the people that pay us are the banks. So our customers are the banks. The cannabis-related business or the operators, those folks are the customers of the banks. We call them our clients, right? And so our role here is to protect the banking system, but also to give the banks all the tools they need in order to attract and retain cannabis deposits, because banks want deposits and then they want to loan those deposits. And so when you want to loan those deposits, you need the domain expertise to know who's a good bet and who's not a good bet. And so we help banks in both of those areas. So we help banks bank and we help banks lend to the cannabis industry.
And Safe Harbor is publicly traded at NASDAQ?
We are SHFS.
Here's my two questions for you. I would imagine your business is growing, but my follow-up question would be, what happens if the federal government reclassifies marijuana? It's no longer Schedule 1. Does that remove the need for Safe Harbor?
Absolutely not. It actually would be a tremendous boon for Safe Harbor in my best forecasts and estimations, and I'm going to explain why. The first thing is banks today, there's only about 8% of the banks in the country banking cannabis. We provide an avenue for folks to bank cannabis. So the 92% that don't bank cannabis, if more of them will take the risk to bank cannabis, we provide a very good solution for those banks to drive that message forward and say, hey, we bank cannabis, bring your deposits to us, while being very, very compliant. And we've been tested over a decade on the compliance side. On the other side of this spectrum is we make money when cannabis operators have money. And 280E is a tax that is put on cannabis operators at the gross profit level. Again, because this is federally
federal tax.
Federal tax. So because it's federally illegal, you can't deduct things like the cost of your employees, the cost of rent, the cost of utilities, the cost of marketing. All of that is not deductible. When you reschedule to Schedule 3, that becomes deductible. And that becoming deductible allows for our operators to be more economically efficient and profitable. And that economic efficiency and profitability, when they deposit their money in the bank, we make a percentage off of what the banks make.
So again, the chutzpah is the word I would use of the federal government. On one hand, this is illegal federally, but on the second hand, we're still going to tax it.
Oh, 100%. And they're going to tax it on the revenue, basically on the gross revenue number, as opposed to normally taxable income, right? You get taxed on gross revenue. Can you imagine that you're effectively treating the cannabis industry like an employee who gets taxed on every dollar they make?
So as we wrap up, what's the most important thing you would want people to know? And who would you address this to? Potential bankers or to the people you refer to as the clients?
Sure. I'll refer to the potential bankers, the credit unions, and the financial institutions. There is no longer a fear factor associated with banking cannabis. Regulators are now understanding fully the 2011 and 2013 Cole Memorandum. They understand the FinSec Memorandum, and there is bipartisan support, even up to Donald Trump and posting on the cannabinoid system, for alleviating some of the regulation associated with this. And everybody wants safer banking. The industry is going from $36 billion, $35 billion to over $76 billion. It needs top-notch banking. It needs compliance. And, Safe Harbor is in a position to help you say yes. And within a quick, within a turnkey situation, you will be banking cannabis and accepting deposits and having a team behind you that knows this industry well. It's almost like saying back in the day, we used to say Intel inside, or, you'd hire IBM to make sure you don't screw up. That's what Safe Harbor is for the cannabis industry and for the banks.